Hello everybody. In today's video, we're going to be discussing everything around ayahuasca and indigenous shamanism. Now, I just want to note first off that I have never personally done ayahuasca, but I've known about it for a few years now and kind of gathered educational background of what it is and the people that use it. And may I preface, not much on the experience itself, the actual experience you have when taking ayahuasca. So this video is for people that have really never heard much about ayahuasca, may have seen a video or two about it and are trying to get a better understanding of exactly what it is without just looking it right up. So I have a few notes here that I'm going to go down just to keep me in order from blabbering. But the first being, what is ayahuasca? So actually, ayahuasca, the name itself, translates to vine of the dead. And that'll make a little more sense in a moment. What ayahuasca is it's a plant brew. It's a brew made from two main component plants. There are reports of other tribes using different components in their ayahuasca, but there's two main ingredients, and those two main ingredients are the vine of a tree known as Banisteriopsis caapi and the leaves of a plant known as Psychotria viridis, or sometimes chacruna. Now, this vine and leaf contain two different types of chemicals. The leaves contain a chemical known as DMT, or NN-DMT, or chemically NN-dimethyltryptamine. This compound is a naturally occurring hallucinogenic or psychedelic compound that is found abundantly in many different plants and even animals, actually. When you take DMT, you experience a psychedelic trip, as it's colloquially known. The vine component contains a chemical known as MAOI, which means Monoamine Oxidase Inhibitor. Now, before I go on about, ayahuasca and its background, I want to tell you about the strange sort of chemical thing going on here with ayahuasca. So, DMT alone is not orally active. You can't eat the leaves or plant material of something that contains DMT and have a DMT trip. It doesn't work like that because there is an enzyme in our guts known as monoamine oxidase, and what it does is break down chemicals like DMT. So when you eat something that contains DMT, monoamine oxidase breaks it down immediately. There are chemicals known as MAOIs, which are what are in the vine, which are monoamine oxidase inhibitors. And what those do is when you ingest those, they inhibit the effect of that enzyme, just like the name suggests. So when you take a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, that enzyme no longer works for a temporary period of time. If you eat a plant that contains DMT after taking an MAOI, the DMT is left untouched and it is experienced orally. You will have a DMT trip if you have eaten a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. Now, that's what these two plants are primarily made up of, is DMT and MAOIs. And I'm going to get into how bizarre that is a little later. But first, I want to talk about how ayahuasca and kind of just psychedelics themselves have seemed to be making a comeback or a reintegration into society. So, I mean, if you're watching this video right now, you're a good example of it. Because I've seen all around videos of people going to these ayahuasca ceremonies, these ayahuasca retreats down in the Amazon jungle, rainforest. And they go down there and they hang out with this tribe of shamans, and they are included in ayahuasca ceremonies that the shamans do. And they give their reports of the experiences and how it helps, with trauma and depression and stuff of that nature. And what I look at when I see that, when I look at what I see when I look at this rising popularity of psychedelics, is that two things really. Either our society is beginning to question spirituality, and not in a derogatory sense. What I mean by that is more in a sense of opening our minds to spirituality or psychedelics. Just to give a scenario, somebody that's been, hard in their ways for years is beginning to wonder, what are these people talking about with this, psychedelics and spirituality? What are they talking about with these holy visions and merging with the universe and realizing your true self and all that stuff? Like, to a lot of people, that stuff sounds silly and, woo-woo. But to other people, which I am a victim of myself, you hear those experiences, and you start to really wonder yourself. Like, what are these people going through? What are these experiences they are having? Be it psychedelics or spirituality, but seemingly psychedelics. You know what I mean? People are starting to reevaluate their take on psychedelics and are becoming more curious once again with what do these things have to offer. Because a lot of people are, from a lot of the retreats you see, a lot of people are burnt out with how they live their lives, and they felt like they were let down by their parents or their friends or their culture or whatever it may be, and they're trying to find a new outlook. So in essence, people are turning to psychedelics again. And you think about it, like the other take I have on why these, ayahuasca is really coming back. Well, not really coming back, but making an appearance, because it was never really a thing in our culture. I've theorized that the psychedelics themselves are making an appearance. They want to be seen again. We look back into the 50s. LSD was really the first, psychedelic bang that our culture experienced. We advanced more in psychology. Once we discovered LSD, we were advancing in psychological achievements and understandings as much as we were when we discovered the atom. That's mind-blowing to me. That blows my mind. We were learning a lot about the mind when LSD appeared. And then it got out into society's hands, and we see with the counterculture and the revolutions, the uprise of the hippies and all these people realizing their true selves and letting go of the boundaries of culture. And it started to make authorities a little skeptical of, what are these things showing people, and maybe not even authorities, maybe the users of the psychedelics themselves were seeing something. They had some good trips a little while ago, and then they take it again, and they're starting to question things and get a little deep down in that rabbit hole of inquiry, and they got spooked and turned their back on the psychedelics, went back to their old ways because they got shown something a little too much for them to handle through the psychedelics. But needless to say, the psychedelics seemed to have faded away. It seemed to have come in and leave. It's as if they came in and we pushed them away, really. But now it seems like these psychedelics are making a comeback into our society. You look at things like the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, or MAPS, which is a non-profit organization that works with psychedelic assisted psychotherapy using things like MDMA, ecstasy, and psilocybin, which is the active chemical in mushrooms. Maybe eventually even using DMT, but you look them up, they're doing legit stuff. They're helping real people with real symptoms like PTSD, depression, stuff like that. Once again, looking into these ayahuasca retreats, tons of people are going down to the Amazon, different parts of the world, to embark on these ayahuasca journeys, to take ayahuasca and see what ayahuasca has to offer, you know? And like I said prior, humans are either re-evaluating their take on psychedelics and spirituality itself and starting to become open-minded and curious to the potential that these things offer, or psychedelics themselves are once again coming back. You know, I've had this idea. LSD had its role. Now it's DMT's turn. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, if you want to get into the chemistry of it, psilocybin is a form of DMT as well. Ayahuasca's main component is DMT. And it's like DMT is having a turn now. DMT is making its way into society, and it wants to be heard. It wants to be seen. It wants to communicate with us. Regardless of our take on it, we're just aligning with its desires. Let's go do ayahuasca. Let's go down to the Amazon and do ayahuasca. The DMT's like, got him. I'm joking. But, yeah, it seems to be that these psychedelics are coming back. These psychedelics are making a reintegration into our society and our lives. It did with me. I mean, I was quite young when I got into psychedelics. It was like one of my first personalities getting, like, in high school, you know what I mean? And it's carried out into this spiritual journey ever since. And I imagine a lot of people in the world are experiencing what I've experienced and am still experiencing, is this coming to your senses and awakening through the use of psychedelics. But to bring it back into ayahuasca, what the video is about, I want to talk a little bit about what the shamans themselves share about the ayahuasca experiences. Now, like I said, none of what I'm saying is experiential, and it's mainly anecdotal from different things I've read, videos I've watched, people I've listened to, links I've seen, and stuff like that. But, Terence McKenna, if you don't know him, a big psychedelic advocate back in the 80s and 90s, he shares of a story of him down in the Amazon talking with an ayahuasqueros, which is an ayahuasca shaman, and he's asking him, how did you guys discover this? You know what I mean? How did you guys discover ayahuasca? And as if it's the back of his hand, like he doesn't even second guess it, the shaman says, "Oh, the plants told us. The plants told us how to make this." You know, what do us Westerners make of something like that? And Terence says, again, if you really press the shaman and ask him, what is this experience we're having? What is going on when I take ayahuasca? The shaman says, those are the spirits. Those are the ancestor spirits. And Terence says, you mean to tell me those are dead people in there? And the shaman says, yes, the ancestors. So that makes you wonder what these shamans make of the experience itself, what they believe it to be. And I've never talked with a shaman about what they think of ayahuasca. And also, in many of the videos and stuff I've read about ayahuasca, the shamans themselves don't seem too interested in describing what's going on. It's like it's just like this right now. It's just another reality, and it's here with them, and it's just normal. It's normal to be with Mother Aya, as they refer to ayahuasca as, the spirits within ayahuasca. But no, what I take it is that these shamans see the ayahuasca realm as an access, a gateway to the ancestral or spirit realm, where they can talk with past relatives and ancient ancestors of their bloodline. And these spirits work with them and talk with them and help them through, problems in their life right now and past traumas. And I've even heard reports of, back in the day, these shamans were referred to as medicine men, and would use the ayahuasca to do things like find out who was cheating on who in relationships, to find the stolen or misplaced object that you had lost, to find out and see in your mind. The medicine man would see in his mind where the lost object was, or who the thief was that stole it, or whatever. He could see sicknesses, who was sick and what they had and how and what they needed to be healed. That's why they were seen as just all-rounded medicine men, or magic men, shaman, So, borderline, these shamans believe that ayahuasca is some sort of gateway or access to magical ancestral realms. And I can't really go much more in on what they personally make of it, but you can probably do a little bit of research on the just the religious backgrounds of certain ayahuasca tribes. Like, one of the most popular indigenous ayahuasca tribes is the Shipibo tribe, which are... those are a tribe of people native to the uppermost part of the Amazon rainforest, and they traditionally use ayahuasca and have for a long time. And before I move on to the next point, I want to share, you look up Shipibo art, or Shipibo people themselves, the clothing they're wearing, the art, the fabric that they make. To me, I don't know about you guys, but to me, I've tried DMT, not in the form of ayahuasca, obviously, but smoked DMT. And I look at the Shipibo art and I think immediately, that looks like DMT. That looks like DMT visuals. You look at it and it looks like what you would see. It looks like sacred geometry, psychedelic geometry, the kind of stuff you would see on a DMT trip. In my experience and opinion, I look at that and go, wow, what they are representing in their art and clothing is portrayals of the visions they see, And one more thing before I move on, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the chanting that they do during these ceremonies, which is known as Icaros. They usually have this little bundle of dried leaves, and they're shaking it in a rhythm like that. And they're doing this soft singing chanting, soft melodic chanting. Now, what they believe this to do is to create a sort of like navigation, like a pathway through the psychedelic experience, through the ayahuasca realm. And they sing this chant to guide the users through the trip itself. Now, once again, I don't have any personal experience with this, but to paraphrase Terence McKenna again, he's talked about how he was down at an ayahuasca ceremony, and after the trip, came down and they were settling down, he was listening, kind of eavesdropping on people talking about it, and they were saying things like, I liked the part of the shaman's song where the purple streamers came and washed over the electric waterfall, or you know, spiraled off into this, you know. He said he realized these people weren't describing a song. That's not how you describe a song. That's how you describe a vision. And he realized that these shamans were in essence creating the visions through their music, through their sound. And if you look into Terrence et al., you'll hear a lot about how he worked with sound itself in the psychedelic realm, and how he could make sounds that would create certain visual performances while on the psychedelic. But that's kind of another story. Regardless, these shamans, these tribes, have very mysterious and bizarre understandings and connections to this ayahuasca thing. No more coffee. So, my last point that I have here is the historical background of ayahuasca. How it was discovered, its roles in their religion and culture, which I kind of already touched on. But what I really want to touch on is how it was discovered, which is something we don't even know. The shamans themselves were, I mean, of these days, were raised in that tradition of using ayahuasca. But how did the first people discover it? Because we don't have reports of that. We don't know how they discovered it. Just to mention one part of how we don't know how they discovered it. Remember the MAOI thing I was talking about earlier? And how ingesting an MAOI allows you to experience DMT orally. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to feel the DMT if it wasn't for the MAOI. We didn't discover that whole mess until the 1950s. We didn't even know that monoamine oxidase was an enzyme in the body, let alone its function, and that there were chemicals that inhibited that enzyme. We didn't know about that stuff until the 1950s. The shamans, I mean, I assume they don't have a chemistry-based background of that, oh, the vine contains MAOI and the leaf contains DMT. I combine these chemically, I'm experiencing this trip. I feel like they don't think about that. But needless to say, they understand that combining these two plants allows them to experience this realm. They know that. That's why they do it. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to talk about, is potentially how they discovered such a thing, because it's really a work of art. It's a miracle, a chemistry miracle, that such a primitive tribe would discover such an advanced, chemically advanced system and experience. I'm a shaman. I'm using plant medicines. So I've theorized two different ways that the tribes discovered ayahuasca. It was long ago, regardless. It was long ago that they discovered this, because they've been reportedly using this for thousands of years. But I want to mention first that the discovery of ayahuasca had to have taken place after we had honed in on making fire. Being able to make fire, or transport fire and produce fire ourselves. Because to make ayahuasca requires boiling the plants in a pot of water. So it was after fire that ayahuasca took place, but potentially pretty close to that time we started making ayahuasca. They started making ayahuasca. Now, to talk about how they discovered it, like I said, I have two real theories on how it was discovered. The first is intellectual based. So let's just imagine a community, this indigenous community that originates from the Amazon. They are living. They boil water. They forage. They forage for insects and plants and fruits and fungi and all these different things that they can eat for medicine and nutrition. And this tribe in particular, in theory, discovered the art of extracting the nutrients or medicinal values of plants and berries and barks and plant material, that sorts of stuff, extracting that into water by boiling, making things like teas and coffees before they even knew what such a thing was. They knew that if they were to take these berries and plants and leaves and all this stuff and twigs and boil it in water and then strain it off, drinking that water would give them the nutritional or medicinal values that they were looking for, because they were trying to survive, they were trying to cure illnesses. This was an intellectually based community that were, advanced in terms of understanding. And this is my idea of how they discovered the ayahuasca. What they did was accidentally forage the roots, the Banisteriopsis vine, and the Psychotria leaf or the Chacruna leaf, and brewed them together. They made a brew out of it. They accidentally, unintentionally brewed ayahuasca, drank it, and they had this psychedelic experience. They had this ecstatic, mind-bending, hallucinatory trip way back when, and God knows what that would do to the mind. You know what I mean? You really got to consider that kind of stuff. But my idea is that this tribe had this psychedelic experience by unintentionally ingesting ayahuasca that they had made. And afterwards, through the act of reflection, we're going, what was that? What was that experience we just had? How did we have that? And like I said, through the act of reflection, they recalled, wow, this experience took place after we drank this mixture. What was it that we put in this mixture? They started looking back at what it was that they included in that plant mixture and basically dialed in on what it was in that mix that caused that experience. They remade the mix with the same plants, had the trip, you know what I mean? Remade it again, refined it, took some stuff out to see, is it all this stuff together that makes this? Or is it certain things, certain components in particular that we're including that make this? And they boiled it down to the Banisteriopsis and the Psychotria viridis and realized, oh my gosh, these two plant ingredients combined creates this experience. That's one take I have on how they discovered the act of making ayahuasca itself. The other take I have on how they discovered making ayahuasca was that the ayahuasca itself told them, kind of like the shaman talking to Terence McKenna said to him, oh, the plants told us how to make this. They weren't lying. They weren't lying when they said that. They, once again, accidentally brewed ayahuasca, and when they ingested it, during the trip they were having, a seemingly higher being or higher power or intelligence, a purer intelligence, came to them and said, these plants got you here. You want to know what's happening? These two plants got you here. That's how you are experiencing this right now. And they were able to intellectually understand that. and they came out of the experience, be it one person or the whole society, the whole community, going, oh my gosh, this brew we just made is magic. This experience, we just accessed a God realm. Sorry about that, my phone decided it was out of space. I kind of expected that to happen. But yeah, I'm just going to make this last little clip to finish up what I was saying in that last piece, and just to put in conclusion, put in my conclusion. So yeah, what I was saying was that the other side of how ayahuasca was discovered was that the trip itself, the experience they had itself, told them, the beings that they discovered and communicated with through that trip, told them that this is how you got here. They conveyed it to them, so they weren't lying. Terrence's shaman wasn't lying when he said, "Oh, the plants told us." So that's really all I have for ayahuasca. I can't go into experiential reports of it because I've never done it, never talked with a shaman, but I felt it would be cool to give my educational background of what ayahuasca is, and a little bit about the tribes that use them, and how it's seeming to make this new arrival and in our society and throughout the world, how people are turning to ayahuasca out of nowhere. They're just, let's go do this ayahuasca retreat. I heard about this ayahuasca thing, and it's becoming a thing again, and I don't want you to think this is all you're going to get out of ayahuasca is from this video, because basically everything I know is from different videos I've watched, different people I've listened to, different articles that I've read of ayahuasca and people's reports with it and stuff like that. So don't stop here. There's much more to be learned about ayahuasca and the indigenous tribes that have traditionally used them for thousands of years. So I just wanted to say that this isn't a good stopping place. Keep going with your research. There's a lot more that you can know about this. Even if you're not considering doing it, it's a very interesting thing to know about in terms of history and even psychology. So I really think that's it. I just want to say thank you all for watching. It was fun making this video, talking about ayahuasca, letting out everything that I've gathered on the subject over the years. So with that said, thank you all for watching, and I will be back with more.